Sinn Féin have secured enough votes to form a coalition government in Ireland after they took 24.5% of the vote. The left-wing party and political wing of the IRA have said that they'll be turning to smaller political parties to form a coalition without the two centre-right parties, which have long dominated Irish politics. Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou McDonald has pledged to get to grips with issues like housing and health. Well, Mick Fealty, editor of Slugger O'Toole, joins me now to discuss this general election. Mick, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Sarah Jane.
The real headline story of this election is that Sinn Féin surge. What's behind it?
Well, you know what? I'm not sure anybody can say with any great certainty. I think it's a perfect demonstration of voter volatility, in the sense that just last May in the European election, Sinn Féin lost two out of their three sitting MEPs. They lost nearly half of their council seats at council level. And established wisdom would say that if that happens to you in a council election, when the national election comes along, then you're in difficulties. This time, the figures have been extraordinary in the sense that only about 5 or 6 of Sinn Féin's candidates are not going to get elected. No party contests every single possible seat because of proportional representation. And some of those, unbelievably, some of those candidates, one was away on holiday. Several have never actually sat as a councillor, never mind as an MP, which is TD is what an MP effectively is. So this surge even took Sinn Féin by surprise. But if you ask me, really, they have put in a far crisper, energetic, youthful and agile campaign on the two key issues, which were housing shortage, homelessness, sofa surfing, all of that stuff, and a health service that desperately needs gripping and bringing into the 21st century. And on those, although other parties, notably Fianna Fáil, formerly the lead opposition party, were also campaigning on those issues, their campaign never even seemed to wake up or get into first gear. And I think Mary Lou McDonald really, along with 2 or 3 other frontbench spokesmen, really just bossed this election.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how Sinn Féin have really tapped into those younger voters as well as its working class voter support, its traditional support. What about its links to the IRA, its historical links to the IRA? Has that played a part at all? It doesn't seem to have with younger voters who, see the party as very distant from them now. That's part of history.
No, look, I don't think the direct links with the provisional IRA really did have much of a say. I mean, really, although members of the provisional IRA have been involved in criminality in the north, that really doesn't affect the south. The partition of the country really means that you've got two completely different jurisdictions that take strikingly little interest in each other's business. So I think that's true, except the one where I think on two things. I think Sinn Féin became more acceptable in this election for more people than it ever did before. And I'd say there are 2 reasons for that. One, there was the government, if you like, cack-handedly set up a commemoration for the old RIC, the police service before the Garda Síochána and before independence. And that went down really very badly. And I think Sinn Féin probably benefited from a rise in patriotic feeling around that. And the other thing I would say is Brexit. Brexit really played to Sinn Féin's Republican credentials here. And I think sometimes in London, people don't understand that the whole population of the Republic of Ireland gets ITV, BBC broadcast from coast to coast, and they listen to people like Boris Johnson and Rees-Mogg and some of the kind of ignorance around the nature of the border, how the border splits communities that are kind of really together, and the integrity of that kind of single market, breaking that up, I think, probably stirred a lot of, if not patriotic feeling, certainly a degree of British, anti-British feeling which I think has contributed to the sheer scale of Sinn Féin's success.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Mick. What about Sinn Féin in government? Obviously, they're not looking at the two other major parties to do a coalition deal with. They're looking at independence. What could we expect from a Sinn Féin presence in government?
Well, that's going to be fascinating. You know, they're still talking about coalitions. They're even talking about another election because they didn't run enough candidates this time. A second election might actually get them closer to being ahead of a coalition that just completely sidelined the two older parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. And you may see protracted horse trading going on here that ends up in some kind of a breakdown. What can we expect to see from them? Well, they've made some big promises, and they're going to have to make a fair fist of trying to make those things happen. And, you know, in many respects, Ireland has exactly the same issues with its own civil service as the British do, because after independence, Ireland took the British civil service and basically badged it with an Irish harp. And getting things to happen through government, especially the way that Sinn Féin wants. It's a promise something like 100,000 new houses in the next 5 years. It wants most of those to be built by the public sector. It's going to have to find new ways of and innovative ways of developing a new public sector housing sector when simply the country doesn't really have the capacity for that scale or rate of building. On foreign affairs, certainly if Sinn Féin get in ahead of anybody else, they will have control of foreign affairs. That will give them access to Brussels during sensitive trade discussions. It will give them a greater capacity to speak with authority across the Irish border. And of course, what they understand from the polling in Northern Ireland is that the rougher Brexit is, the harder the deal given to Britain, the more likely the population of Northern Ireland is going to want something like a unified Ireland. So I would say if they get into that situation, I think look out for difficulties. More difficulty there is around Brexit, the more likely they'll get their primary strategic objective, which is to spring Northern Ireland free of the United Kingdom.
OK, Mick Fealty, always good to get your point of view, editor of the online news website Slugger O'Toole. Thank you.